Stacy, you write something about Stacy, a blog on the Redbook site. Do you feel restricted and restrained?
I think it's an interesting challenge because I am a person with absolutely no personal boundaries at all. And any of you, so I've met some of you, and you can applaud now and know that that's true, correct? Because what did you not hear about my personal story 10 minutes after meeting me? That's right. So what I think is really interesting is, because Redbook is 104 years old, Redbook has a couple of audience attributes that I just want to talk about for a second because it's important and powerful. I wanted to take over the magazine because it's one of the few women's magazines left in the country that has a fairly even penetration from coast to coast. Most magazines that reach a younger female audience, meaning 50 or younger, are in parentheses and in metropolitan areas only. Redbook's 10 million readers are evenly dispersed coast to coast except Oregon and Washington State. I don't know why they don't like Redbook. We're below index there. I figure they're out hiking and they just can't be bothered. I like to hike too. Then the other thing that's interesting about Redbook's audience is we have a fairly unusually deep penetration into what are called C and D counties. A is city, B is suburbs, C is exurbs, and D is rural. The fact that we're 104 years old is one of the reasons we've been able to manage and maintain that deep audience expression. And I wanted to take over Redbook because I was like, hot damn, you know, everyone's worrying about magazines and segmentation and audiences disappearing. And I was like, and we actually have real American women everywhere that they live. And I wanted to kind of get away from the Sex and the City thing. You know, it's fun to live in New York, it's fun to wear 5-inch heels. Hard to find 5-inch heels, but these are 5 inches. But what I wanted to do is to make a magazine that really valued the full idea of what does it mean to be an American woman today, and the fact that there's a lot of complexity and depth in that, and that it isn't always about shoes and cosmopolitans. So that's a long preamble to say that a lot of my audience is conservative, a lot of my audience is very religious, a lot of my audience thinks that Redbook is a family magazine in a way that means a certain kind of constraint that I do not personally possess. And one of my favorite things about the job is I actually didn't scare any women away. With everything I've done with Redbook, which has been pretty dramatic changes, we never had a drop-off. I never had one meeting where my company said, what the hell are you doing? Which was the big challenge, and it actually has never been done to change a magazine that aggressively in 3 years of insanity. And I wish I'd been blogging then because it would have been a hell of a blog to read, but you can read it in the book that comes out in 2010. But the point is, because I think I have to represent an openness to every idea, I don't feel that I can always be, so I'm 100% who I am, it's just that 25% of me doesn't get to exist in my blog. And I miss it, and I wish it were, and I read all of your blogs, and I get so jealous, because I'm like, you know, I'm funny like that too, and I can be cool like that, and you know, but I feel this funny, so I have to curate my personality to serve my audience. And it's not about business, and it's not about being worried. I think my blog is definitely 100% genuine, but it can't be everything that I am, because I want to respect all those women who would be offended and therefore think I can't speak to their life. It would break something in our relationship. Thank you for supporting that.
I currently don't have a blog because if I gave my true thoughts about my job, I probably wouldn't have it. So, you know.
There's always Twitter, Lesley.
Well, you know, I'm on the business side of our business, even though I do come from a creative background. You know, with our editors and their blogs, you know, I try really hard not to tell them anything. I just say, you know, if I have a big buy with Toyota, just don't trash the car that week. Wait till next week. Sometimes they push back, sometimes they don't. But you know, I think it is really hard. But you know, coming from traditional print where there is that separation between editorial and publishing, you know, I have to respect the stories as they're being told. And as someone on the business side, it represents a challenge. But I do believe you gain more by having the authenticity than by trying to, you know, censor or, you know, or siphon conversation in one direction or another. So my capitalist hat is like cringes every time, but sort of my free spirit person who would be writing the blog and not having a job, you know, supports it 100%.
Thank you. Great question. Next question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Amy Guerin, journalist recovering, and I do a lot of work with the news business. And one thing Molly Ivins said a long time ago I've always loved is that, you know, it doesn't bother me so much that newspapers are dying, it just really pisses me off to watch them commit suicide. And I know that's not just a matter of the news business, but it affects entertainment business to a certain extent too, in that certain mindsets get in their way. Like what you said earlier, Lesley, about how Time Warner doesn't want to be on Twitter, they want to own Twitter. Okay, it seems to me mainstream media has a really hard time accepting that they need to use media rather than just be the media. And I was wondering how that plays. I know how that plays out in news companies. How does it play out in more entertainment and culture type of media?
Well, let's be clear. I mean, there is a reason why they call it the entertainment and media business. So, I mean, you know, I am all about free speech, I'm all about sort of the grassroots, but I'm also not naive enough to think that everybody in this room at some point or another is trying to make money, whether it be putting their voice forward, whether it be telling their stories. And, you know, I think as you roll that up and you look at a company like Time Warner, they're in the business of being in the entertainment business. So it is their responsibility to look at new technologies and new initiatives that they think will help preserve their piece of the pie. It's not pretty, but you know, don't hate the player, hate the game. We live in a capitalist society, that is what we do. So, you know, I think it would be delinquent for the people that run major media companies to not have that on their radar. Whether you agree with it or not, you know, if I run Whole Foods, I'm looking for the next thing that's going to make my Whole Foods brand bigger. And I think it's the same thing with media companies. So, you know, do I like it? You know, does it make me feel comfortable? Not really, but do I recognize that it's part of the game? And that game allows us to sit here and, you know, and sort of have these conversations, absolutely. And so, you know, I wish that they would I wish that the mentality would shift more towards we want to own it, to we want to incubate it, or we want to help it grow. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that talked about, for the first quarter ever, we haven't had an American IPO. And if you talk to most technology entrepreneurs, their exit strategy is, I want to sell it to Google, I want to sell it to Microsoft, I want to sell it to Yahoo. That's sad. You know, because if everyone does that, we're not going to have another Google, and we're not going to have another Microsoft. And so I would like to see more support and incubation as opposed to outright purchase, because a lot of times when that happens, the creativity and the passion, just by nature of moving into a large media company, changes, and I think sometimes can negatively impact the business.